So we did this last year in the ETH Zurich. And then we said, I said that we should move this also to this area because many people that may be interested in this program, and people like the idea, and they are really helping with this because Wug is coming from Zurich, he's coming from Geneva, and then me, I'm doing my PhD here, so it's easier. I just have the room upstairs, and Emmanuel. And later we plan also to have some talks by people from Google, but unfortunately today they cancel. But as a plan B, we will have a hangout with Wolf, so he will try to answer the questions you have. Okay, so let's start. So today we will talk about Google Summer of Code and why you should do it. We set a register form, and we asked all the attendants how much experience do you have in the Google Summer of Code, and some, I think only one said that already participated, but all the others are new, and so then I hope this things is what I'm going to say is new for all of you. We belong to the Google Summer of Code group in Switzerland, so if you're interested, just join this group in Google to get more information about the event. So the agenda of today, first we'll talk what is Google Summer of Code, why you should do Google Summer of Code, explain a little about how does it work, and what is like to be a part of this program, and we will end with the questions and answer sessions and the expected pizzas that are coming at 7. So, what is Google Summer of Code? So, Google Summer of Code is about you, university students, and open source communities. So it's a program that is to support open source community, and I think it's very good for bringing newcomers to open source communities. Because if you want to start participating and to start coding in a project that has many years, it's a bit difficult if you are not experienced to enter that community, and you can shout for help for sure. So communities are very good in helping people, but when you're participating as a Google Summer of Code student, you get the mentorship. So then there's someone that is responsible on the community, on you and on your work, and he or she will follow your work and answer your question. So this is Jarko, my friend. He did in a summer, he worked for a burger chain, and he flipped burgers. So Google Summer of Code is about flipping bits and not burgers in summer. So who are the open source organizations that participate? So there are many, and with every year, Google is accepting more organizations. This is the 10th year. So as you see, there are more that are not here, but I'm sure you know some of them. Do you know some, I don't know, Tor? What is Tor about? Have you heard about Plum? I never heard about Plum, honestly. So, well, Facebook, yeah, there are many. Wikipedia, Postgres. Okay. So, this year, on Monday, the organizations that were accepted are published in the Google website. This year we will have 119 organizations. Last year it was 177. And the thing is that there's a big range of fields that I cover by this organization. So it's quite interesting if you're a student and you want to, you're working in operating systems, so then you can have a real world experience in the summer by coding something for one of the organizations that covers this field, or they are things completely different, not so technical, humanitarian efforts, biology, health. So then it's also interesting for people that are not coming from computer science. I think all of you are from computer science, no? Isn't it? Is somebody from other field? No. Okay, but for instance, last talk we have, one of the speakers was from biology. So she had a very good expertise in her domain, and she, of course, she has knowledge about programming, but she's not from computer science. And she did 1 year as a student, another year as a mentor, and then she gave a speaker talk. So it's possible to participate even if you are not coming from computer science and you are not a real expert programming. So, what is Google Summer of Code? Last year there were almost 1,200 students. As I said before, 177 organizations. This covers many also nationalities, and the success rate is 88%. This is important because if you don't succeed, you don't get the money and you don't get the t-shirt. So you need to succeed. So you will be paid at the very beginning just a small amount of money for motivate you, and then there will be a midterm evaluation, and in the last evaluation you get a t-shirt. So it's also important for people that are not participating as a student, but for mentors. For being a mentor, you don't need to be a student. You just need to belong to that community, and you will also receive money. It's less, but you spend less time. So it's not the amount of time that you spend is not fixed, and I don't have the experience because I've never been a mentor, but I think it's about 5 or 10 hours per week. A student is a full-time work, normally. So this year, well, Google is expecting more students, but I don't know exactly. And the organization is already fixed. And also Google increased the payment. For the students will be $500 more. So in total in francs it's about 5,000 francs. So, second part. Why you should join Google Summer of Code. So, first, improve your CV. You need to write good things in your CV to get a job. There's a lot of competition, and yeah, having Google Summer of Code in the CV is a nice point. So, it's a well-respected program. It has 10 years. The open source communities are also well-respected communities. They are already selected by Google, so it's not that you will participate in something that you don't know, you risk. So you have some assurance that this will be a good project. But obviously, everyone knows Google. Yeah, you will pick many skills, especially with the mentor. As I said before, it's really very good because it's somebody that is committed to your work. So, and it's, if your mentor fails, the community will take care about this. They will have a backup mentor. It's part of the requirements to be a mentor organization. You have to deal with these kind of things. So I think it's good. Okay, so second, the experience about working with an open source community. So you meet and work with new inspiring people that are working on that project for many years, and they can guide you, they can teach you new skills, new things. It's really very positive experience. Maybe at the end you can make this work. You can use it for a publication. You can go to conference or meetups. You never know all the new activities that will appear after you join these open source communities. You get paid, so it's 3 months of work. You are working on your own project. You are not working in a fast food chains, or you can somehow manage your time. So it's really, you have to consider it's a full-time job, but you manage your time. So if one day you are very busy, so you want to work in the night, or you always want work in the night, and you don't want to wake up at 8 and go into, you can do it. But the thing is that you need to arrange things and talk with your mentor. This is very important. So is what I said before is a total of about 5,000 francs. Well, be free. As I said before, you are leading your project. So you will write your milestones in the project. Of course, the mentor or maybe other members of the community will suggest changes. So you have to get an agreement, but you will write the milestones. So if you know, okay, this week I will be very busy because I have these exams and blah, 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 or I don't know, I promised my girlfriend take it to some place, so I don't want to work that day. So okay, I move it will not kill your project. So it's all your responsibility to write the milestones according to your necessities. You can work whenever you want, wherever you want to, and your work is your work. So, and it will be open source. Yeah. So I said before, you will learn many new skills. Learn from your mentors, learn also from the community members. The community members usually, they also help a lot the students. There are many ways to communicate with them by IRC channels or the forums, and they are very, very generous people in my experience. So I think it all depends on the community, but in general, there are people that love the project. They do it because they just want it. They believe on the project. It's not somebody, it's a volunteer work. So then it's really nice people. So then, you learn to work in a community or team. Maybe it's not everything white or pink or whatever color you like more. You will have problems probably. So we are all humans, and you will have to deal with these problems during the Google Summer of Code. I mean, maybe you don't have, but you have to be prepared for that. And that's a very good experience too, because you will have to deal with those kind of situations in a normal company, in a business. So I think it's also very positive experience. And you will have to learn how to work by your own, because although you have your mentor, you have the communities, you can ask things. If you write into the forums very stupid, silly questions, the people will not like it, and they will complain or they will insult you maybe. Yes, people are very open with their thoughts in this kind of community, so you will also learn how to find your answers by your own, using the internet and other tools. So, how does it work? So first, February is already gone. The applications for open organizations. On Monday, the accepted organizations were announced. The important period now is the student application period. If you want to be a mentor, you have to apply also here. The deadline is not written. I'm not very sure, but yeah, you can search on the internet. But it's happening at this time too. So 21st of April, the accepted students will be announced. Students start coding in May, and June is the end of June midterm evaluation, end of August final evaluation, and you're done. And maybe you have 1 week less before this next semester starts, and you can have some kind of short holiday. How does it work? So this is taken from today, from the website, Google website. This is the deadline. So I suggest that if you're interested, you start contacting now the organization that you want to apply now, not the date of this is deadline, because you really need to show them, to show the community that you will be involved, that you know what's the code about. You need to at least to compile the code in your machine, so you need time for doing that. So it's also very busy, the application time. And for future mentors and administrators, you can also go now to the website and start connection. So, as I said before, there are many fields covered by these organizations. This is taken from the Google site. So you can search the topic of your interest by using the tags. These are the organizations that appear for the term distributed, for health, for graphics. There are many topics. And how does it work? So then once you select an organization that you like, you go to the ideas page of the organization. So normally each organization will offer a bunch of ideas, and these ideas, if these ideas are not enough and you want to do something else, something different for that company, it is also possible. You have to write the organization and say, okay, yeah, let's go, guys, I like this very much, but in fact I'm doing research, or I'm working on this, or I'm interested on this other topic. Is it important for you? And if they give some priority, so you can negotiate and write your own project. So these are the key websites you have to use for getting more information. And well, now we will switch to the part of the experience, student experience. So what it's like to be part of Google Summer of Code. So I will talk just very short about my project to give more place to the others. I work for Freenet project. I chose this project basically because it was my research. I'm doing research in distributed storage and in anti-censorship tools. So I really wanted to have an experience in the real world, and I just write the name of Freenet project if it was accepted, and yeah, I was lucky because I knew the project, but I didn't know if Freenet was selected by Google. But yeah, the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years is working in this program, so it was very good. For me, it was easy. I just knew this organization, but for others, they may try to apply to multiple organizations. This is possible too. It is not recommended that you apply for more than 5 organizations, but you can try it some and see if you are selected. I didn't say that before, but Google is not selecting you. It's the organization who selects you. So you have to contact the organization, contact the mentor that is written in the ADS page, contact other members, and start being active in the community to be selected. And fill the application form in the Google page. So, for this project, what I did was a plugin that helped to distribute the content that is in Freenet. As I said before, the very good things for me was that the project was related to my own research. Then I received very good support from my mentor. I was happy with the outcomes with my mentor and other members of the communities. In fact, after the program, I decided to go to a conference, and I paid by I used part of my paid to go to this conference to meet the people of the community and promote Freenet. And it's also after that there are also new challenges, more things that I would like to continue doing for this community if I have time, because I'm very busy with the PhD now. But if I have time, I would like to continue. So let's give the token to Wookie.
Okay. Hi, so I'm Sean Wook, or better known as Wookie. I'm currently studying on a master's program for computational science at ETH, and I did a bachelor's in physics. And I ended up working for this organization called Measurement Lab, which I imagine none of you have heard of. And they accumulate data, lots of different kind of network measurements all over the globe, and then they make it available to the public via the Google BigQuery API. And the aim is to make networks around the world more neutral, so you can see what ISPs throttle more, or which countries have better internet connection speeds, or all sorts of different analytics. And I worked on Measurement Lab name service, which allows you to route clients to whatever server that you need to pick. And in this case, I was working on a system to route people depending on network latency. And previously, there was only a geographic-based selection. So, for example, if you're in Neuchâtel, and I did the measurements in Zurich, but still, if you were to ping Milan, you would get a slightly higher ping than if you were to ping Paris, which is not necessarily true, but for this example, let's say it's true. And for this, for example, if you want to make some speed tests, you would probably want to pick Paris if it has the lower latency. And therefore, the organization wants to add in this new metric, this new way of picking servers. And you can see that the orange balloons are these servers that are scattered around, and they're provided by Google infrastructure. And yeah, that was my work. But what I want to tell you more about is the fact that there were a lot of unexpected things. So I actually didn't apply for this latency-related server picking thing. I applied to port their existing NS to a different language because I had done physics and I didn't know anything actually about networks. And they still picked me because they thought I was eager enough, and I got to learn a lot of stuff, and it was a great learning experience. And pretty eye-opening as well. It was really fun. But again, other surprises apart from that. And one is that the application takes a lot of work, depending on how you do it. But especially if you apply to multiple organizations, you might find that they won't take much interest in you unless you really show your eagerness. Like go and talk to them a lot, but maybe not pester them, maybe not be too intimate or anything. Just say, hello, I'm interested in this. My program's not compiling. How do I do it? Do you have any tips? Or I want to edit this. How should I do it? Or, yeah, but not questions like, how do I apply, which you can find out anyway, or what should I specifically write? Should I write the town of my birthplace, which is completely irrelevant, and all that. But you do need to make sure you target your application so that so that you give them what they want to see. You want to prove that you are the good candidate, and therefore you should invest a little bit of time to know how you should be able to do that. During the Google Summer of Code, I thought, yeah, I can do a little bit of work, and then I can just hang out with my friends or go visit somewhere and then cram my work in one of the few weekdays. But it wasn't necessarily true. So I found myself working quite a lot during the week, and even on the weekends if I wanted to. So you need to make sure that you don't think that, oh, I can do Google Summer of Code, but I can also work at McDonald's so that I can combine the two and earn lots of money. Or I can do a research experience and also Google Summer of Code and still be traveling in Italy somewhere, which could work, but I think it's incredibly difficult to do. During the project, my organization was a bit small, so communication was there was very little communication, and sometimes it was a little bit difficult to communicate what I meant and what they meant back to me. So I found that at some point I wasn't being stimulated enough, and I was losing some motivation. And because it's a 3-month-long project, I think we might not have emphasized that much, but it's 3 whole months, and it's in a way still an isolated own personal project that you get input from the community and your mentors. So you need to make sure that you really want to do the project that you're applying for, and not just saying, well, $5,500, great. Okay, I'm going to pick this project because I think I might be able to do it, and then just go, okay, I'll just do it somehow, and then lose motivation and drop out, because it does happen. And not necessarily always because of the students, but it does happen, and you should know that if you want to do it, you should really want to do it. And also another thing is that you don't get stimulation all the time from around you. So for example, if you were working in the Google offices, you would be physically sitting there, and somebody would walk by, and then maybe you'll be browsing on Reddit, and suddenly go, okay, I need to go back to my work. Or maybe you're looking at lolcats and you think, okay, I think I've looked at it enough, I should do some work. And you can also get guidance, so they can tell you, why are you using that there? And then you could say, actually, I'm not sure, right? And you would get input all the time, but it's a very different environment, so you have to be quite focused. You just need to know that you're kind of on your own, not really, but you need your own commitment. Having said that, though, it's a great program. It's a really great program, because you can decide what you do, when, where, and we've said this before, but I can't emphasize this enough. Sometimes I was coding on the train, sometimes I was coding in the car with 3G. I mean, it worked, and I could do my work whenever I wanted to. At some point, I was visiting friends, and I was on the metro coding. Nobody really cared, and that was all right. And at the end, you have something that's done, a final product. The idea of Google Summer of Code is that you work on something that actually ends up being an actual thing, not something that disappears or something that gets lost in the process later on. The idea is that you as a student get to finish something, and it's out in the open. Anyone can read your code, anyone can see the great stuff that you've done, and that is pretty amazing. So yeah, that was from me, and then I'll pass it on to Spiros.
Thanks. Hello everyone, my name is Spiros, just. I was a student and a mentor in 2 consecutive years. First, I'll tell some things about my student experience. I worked for Freifunk. It's a German umbrella organization which supports Wi-Fi projects, so like OLSR, Batman, and others. I work for Batman. Batman stands for Better Approach to Mobile Ad Hoc Networking. Batman is easier to remember. It's a routing protocol for mesh networking, mainly. It works in layer 2, so it's a Linux kernel module. And instead of having routing tables, you have one huge routing table with all the MAC addresses. You would have little to no IP usage. It's not better, let's say, but it's another approach. My experience was quite good. I didn't put a lot of effort in my application because I met the mentors personally, and we were 3 days in a row discussing the application, and they showed me everything on their computers, and I had a very personal thing. But I do believe that what Wiki said is correct. I was just a very, very lucky exception. The mentors were kernel hackers, so they were as good as it gets in C coders. And okay, the code produced was in the kernel module, so I have that. And the rest of the community were either kernel hackers or Wi-Fi hackers, and they were very knowledgeable. I was just a simple student trying to finish an internship at summer of 2012. But after the project, I had learned about automate tools, C, Linux kernel, and quite a lot of Wi-Fi networking, which was incredible. I went back to university and I was talking to my professors, and they were asking me where I work and how do I know that much. It was just a summer of 12 hours a day coding. The next one is the mentor experience. Now I'm with OWASP. I have a very small project called Academic Challenges. It's PHP CMS, yes, on the other side of the coding languages. And it focuses on security and on teaching security to people. So professors use it in several universities in the world to set up a learning environment with challenges and homework for their students. Last year was my first mentor year. We had a Swedish, I think, guy. Yes, it was a Swedish guy called Daniel something. He's one of the best PHP coders I've met, actually. He's older than me, and he's a master's student. I'm still in bachelor's. But we had a very nice cooperation, and he wrote a plugin API for us while being on vacation, as some of you heard, in some Swedish forests up in the north, sending me pictures while I was working. Very nice. The perks of working for Academic, and yeah, this is shameless project promotion. Sorry, both me. The perks for working for any organization, but big organizations like OWASP, and not only for Academic, but OWASP has more than 80 projects. Pretty much in any language, they are all focused in security. So if you're interested in computer security, or if your master's or PhD is in computer security, you can find something interesting there. It's a visibility. One of the good things is because OWASP is a huge organization all over the world, 200 more local chapters. So yeah, you have that. There are many opportunities for collaboration outside of that, because OWASP has a university sprint, which means that we are quite open to universities, and we have many professors donating work and PhD students. And of course, for Academic, last year's student had a blast, as I told you. He was very good. He had a very nice time, and in the end, we were so happy with him that we paid the $500 we got from Google. We gave it to him to get him to a conference in Hamburg. So he learned even more. What else? Yeah. I think I have one last slide. Yes. There are just 2 tips because Wiki and Veronica covered pretty much everything else. as Veronica said, contact the community early. I mean, as mentors, we get an email from someone we don't know somewhere in the world that says that he wants to work for us and he will get money from Google for that. We have to trust him somehow. So if you contact me, I don't know, 12 hours before the deadline, I can't really know that. I mean, anyone can't really know that you're a legit person. Maybe you're the last resort, or maybe you are just a script, and you go for the first $500 that you get, and that's all. So contact early, pose legitimate questions, download the project, try to compile it, try to use it. Or maybe some organizations say require a bug report. We don't. I think your organization also doesn't. Okay. And our organizations don't require bug reports, but big projects like gcc, gsoc-ch, GNOME, and Apache, most Apache projects in Firefox do. And also put you some effort. Okay, it's not so much work as you said, I think, at least in my applications. But put some work in your application because if you have contacted the mentors and the mentors know you and the organization knows you, then your application is pretty much ready because you have the emails there, you have the proposals, you have the fixes, so you have to just put them in a paper with your CV or a small CV, and it's pretty much ready. So detail your plans and also put a time frame. This is something that only 2 people did last year, and it was very helpful because if a person tells you beforehand that, I'm going to have vacation at that point, I'm going to have exams at that point, you can pretty much, have your time accordingly. Because, a mentor, sorry Veronica, but a mentor, depending on the student, he may have to invest more than 5 hours a week or 10. I mean, my mentors on the first project, I invested probably like 12 or 13 times a week, just on me because I didn't know anything. But for the last year student, I was 4 hours a week, and that was all, because the guy was awesome. What else? I think that's all. Yes, Emmanuel.
So, my name is Emmanuel Onika. I was a Google Summer of Code student in 2008, which is quite long ago. So I was a bit reluctant when actually Veronica asked me to give a talk, but I realized that I still remember enough to do it. Well, I don't have anymore the t-shirt, probably doesn't fit. It's somewhere in the closet, but just a few words about the project I worked on. So I worked for SIP Communicator, which doesn't exist anymore. It has been transformed into something called Jitsi now, which is essentially a voice over IP video instant messaging client, so something like Skype or Yahoo Messenger, for instance. It was early developed at LSIIT, which was a network research lab associated with the University of Strasbourg. Currently, also that lab doesn't exist anymore, so it things evolved, so now it's called iCube Lab, as far as I know. And the project itself, it's a standalone startup, which is Jitsi, so it got separated from the academics. The project team itself was the integration of a key management protocol, more exactly ZRTP over the secure mail transport layer, SRTP, stuff that probably will require ages to explain, so, and probably also does not interest much anybody. So I will get to the more important part, which are a few tips, hopefully still valid. So a bit of background. So how I got into Google Summer of Code 2008. So first time I applied in 2005. Well, it was the first year when I heard about Google Summer of Code. It was after the start date for the student proposals, and I just picked 2 applications. I don't even remember what applications, and I just wrote a short, nice letter. Oh, this application looks so nice, and the project idea. Of course, it was useless. In 2006, I got more focused. I had only 1 unsuccessful application, which was, as far as I remember, on Mmap, and I got something a bit more extended with a sort of project plan, but it was still done in a rush in half a day, and again, of course, it didn't work. So in 2007, I was a bit between bachelor's and master's, so I was not really eligible, so this is why 2007 is missing. So in 2008, I tried again, but this time I actually looked before at the deadline for the students' applications, and finally I got accepted, and let's see why, which actually overlaps a bit with the tips for the start of the project. So first, you should apply for something that you're really, really interested in. So this is my recommendation. So I was trying to do my master thesis on voice over IP related stuff. So first I looked at the range of projects at the range of organizations from the previous year to see which one of them dealt with voice over IP. I found one. I was sort of centered on security in voice over IP. I found out that a guy in the previous year did the implementation for the protocol, and I was trying to see what else actually can be done on the protocol. And also, in the previous year, there was a project which wasn't picked. And I assumed that will be proposed again, because it was sort of a continuity for the project that was done before. And it was proposed again. So I applied for that one. But before applying, I actually tried to know a bit the area, so more precisely, because, well, it was close to my interests in my master thesis, but it was not exactly the same thing. Eventually, it went a bit more, even more close. So there are 2 things. Now it really depends also on the project. In my case, I had to deal also with some theory and also with some code. On theory, I had to learn a bit more about some protocols. On the code side, I knew Java, but the project itself was done in something called OSGI, which is in Java, but there is a full application development platform, so you have a learning curve. I also had to look in the code of the project and see how I would actually integrate the support for what I wanted to do. So I actually did a scratch plan in this period of application. Then some other stuff that you should do, but this was actually after I got accepted. So, to move back a little, so actually at the application point, like I said, I applied with a very clear plan of integration this time. It followed something like 2 days of questions and by email from the organization towards me and answers from me on how I would integrate this and that and how things are supposed to work together. So it went further. I was accepted afterwards. So before, again, the coding period starts, which you've seen that it's supposed to be something like in May. I also discussed with the mentors further and, well, about how we would do the project and what other libraries would be needed, because you might need to use some other libraries that you never used before and some other stuff. So it's good to prepare this thing from some time in advance. Other tips for ongoing work. So you should be prepared or flexible enough for changes in the project. So in my case, So I applied for integrating key management protocol in what I had to do, but after something like 2 or 3 weeks from the coding period start date, there was a guy from Nokia Research in Germany who actually had a library doing exactly the same thing, who contacted my organization, and he had the project done, basically. So the problem changed a bit. So I actually had to integrate what the guy did in the project, and I worked with him. And well, the guy by chance was somebody who had something like 30 years experience. I think he's retired now. And he was doing this as a hobby in his free time, but still it was very, very hard to keep track of what he was doing. So the experience was very interesting overall, but anyway, so I had to change the design and stuff, so this was like ongoing. Then, other tip, remember that you're not the only one coding on the application, because usually, well, there are, again, it really depends on the project you're applying for, but you might be something like 10 students coding for the same application, and all your work has to be integrated together at some point. So, well, in my case, it was fortunate enough that the mentors did this. But you should still be keep track a bit of how the I don't know, the main branch of the project is evolving during the time you code, so you won't get into very serious conflicts with other people who are coding for the same project, or to follow up a bit what they are doing and how they are changing the code that might interact with your code and so on. Okay, the third tip is that you should remember that you are the one coding for the project and not the mentor. So the mentor won't be available for you like 24/7. You can still ask him questions, or I don't know, ask for tips or hints, but don't expect like a very big amount of help. So because it can happen that the mentor has multiple students, not only one. So it can happen that the mentor has 2 or 3, or I don't know exactly what are the rules, but it was the case. Another thing that might help is to keep a weekly status of your progress. We were actually recommended to keep a blog, which still exists. And yeah, it's also a useful way to report to your mentor how things are going, because he might not he might not be available to discuss with you every 2 or 3 days. But if you post an entry of what you did during the week, or how I don't know, how you changed some design or so on and so forth, he will see it at some point, and if something is going wrong, he will tell you. So, something else, tips for after Google Summer of Code, it's just one. And that's to try to stay in touch with the organization you've coded for, which I managed to do for a couple of months, but unfortunately I got busy with other stuff and I couldn't do it anymore. But it's an interesting thing to do. So for instance, Jitsi, like I said, now it's a standalone startup, so it evolved quite nicely since 2008. So that's pretty much all.
So okay, last part of the talk is given by Wolf, but he's not here, so I will connect with him by Google Hangout. See if I'm lucky. Okay. Are you here?
Sending the Yahoo mail
Okay, let's try.
We see how does the student get this?
Okay, I move the computer so you see the crowd.
All right, perfect.
Okay. Where is the mic?
There.
Okay, so I will leave it here. I think it's okay. It's full of cable here. Okay, we
Perfect. Hello, everybody.
just a minute that we lost you. Is it okay now?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you all hear
Yeah.
me? All the way in the back too?
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. So, hi. I'm Wolf. I work at Google. I've been involved with the Summer of Code project for the previous 5 years or so, both as a mentor and an administrator for the OSGO program. So this was before I joined Google. Yeah, so my reason for being here is for you to ask me questions. So ask me anything about Summer of Code and I'll try to answer you.
So it's your turn, guys.
So if your questions are not loud enough, we can repeat them
Yeah.
next to the microphone.
Sorry, could you please repeat that?
So I was saying that if the questions aren't loud enough for you to hear, we can repeat them next to the microphone.
Yes, please.
How many students are usually accepted into the program every year?
We have stats for that. I don't remember by heart, but
About 1,200.
1,000 something, if I remember correctly. All in all, it varies every year, and I think it has been an ever-increasing number. But if you go to the Google-Melange site, you will, the Melange website, and there you will see the numbers also from previous years.
What about the organizations? I mean, are you more interested in projects that are somehow giving some benefit to Google, or you to just promote any kind of project? No matter what?
Well, if you look at the list of accepted projects, you will see that it's very wide. Certainly some projects which are interesting for Google are also in that list, but that's not the criteria. The criteria is to have for the organization to write a really good application and to show that you are dedicated to this program, and that way sort of convey that and also have sort of a good idea stage and so on. So I'm not involved in the decision-making process in any way, so that's all I can say about that.
There's often a misconception that they do this for a reason that is other than to, I don't know, just improve engagement in open source. But from experience with talking to many other Google Summer of Code participants, mentors, and just people in general, no, that is just conspiracy. I mean, $8 million, $7 million is pocket money for Google, right? So if they're going to share it out to people who work on open source, good for them. So there is no I haven't perceived any bias or hidden motives or pushing of certain projects in Google Summer of Code.
Is Google having a priority in buying those applications afterwards?
They kind of tell you that you are welcome to apply to Google for anything afterwards, and that you can reference the gsoc organizers.
Yeah, many employees actually do sort of respect having a Summer of Code, a successful Summer of Code project under your belt, and will count that as work experience. So it's a really good way to also help your own CV to accomplish this. It's also nice because the employee can also then have a look at your code because it's open source, it's out there. They can easily see what you have, how you have coded something, so they can learn a lot about you by just sort of seeing that you have done a Summer of Code project, and if you reference to the project itself, it's a good thing to have in your CV.
Any other questions? Yep.
So you mentioned that the whole purpose of Google Summer of Code is to kind of build the open source community. So when you're applying, would it be better to apply to a project that, like, if I've already done some open source work, would it be better to apply to a different project, or should I keep just apply to the project for one that I've already, done work with on the community or something like that?
I would say if you're already involved in a project, you will have a bigger chance of, if that project is doing Summer of Code and got accepted as an organization, you're better off applying to that project because they know you. You will have greater chance of succeeding, and you will also have a greater chance of being accepted since you're already part of the community. Some would say that, but since I'm involved with this project, I should be a mentor. Well, it's up to you. I chose to become a mentor. I didn't do a student project, but that was just my personal choice. We've had other people in the grass and under the OSGeo umbrella, we have several projects, and there are people who have been key people in those projects that have been applying as a student, and then that way got accepted. It's very easy for the mentor if you have someone who already knows the code base. So in that sense, it's all good. And also you should probably talk to your own org and see what they think. If they don't see any problem with it, go for it.
So Veronica already told us that there are people from other fields than computer sciences. So actually, how much knowledge of programming knowledge do students need to be able to participate?
That's a tough one. Again, it depends a bit on the project and what the sort of the organization and what their goals are. I have seen people who have been relatively new to coding. Some programming skills are required. Other organizations really require people to really know how to program because they have these really difficult or complex tasks. But I would encourage you, if you're interested and are keen in doing this, you should definitely apply. And in your proposal, put in maybe some, or in this application, write that you're maybe not the world's most experienced programmer, but that you see this as an opportunity for you to learn real programming. And that usually is not a problem. Then the students or the mentors usually can take this into account and then help you around also the programming. But some other organizations, they will have, for instance, an entry exam where they require you to fix a bug or something in order to do that or to even apply. This is also a good measure for yourself to see whether you're able to handle this code base if you can fix a small bug that they have selected. These are usually very simple bugs, so you should be able to then just apply or try to fix that, and it will tell you whether this code base is something that you're comfortable with. Other than that, yeah, it's very dependent again on the project. But talk to your organization. They will definitely know what they want. So at least hopefully.
Thank you. Any more questions? The newcomers?
I have one question. Wolf, you said that you were a mentor, right?
Yes.
Okay, then do you have any tips?
Yes.
For students?
As a mentor, tips for being a mentor. Tip number one, try to only have one student. I did 2 student ones. Some people can do it. For me, it was doable because one of the students was really good and was able to cope very much on his own, whereas the other student needed a bit more sort of taken care of. Tip number 2, schedule or talk to your student early on and make sure he commits to a time plan where you have sort of these key moments where you can test so that he has deliverables, that he can deliver stuff on a weekly basis, and then schedule maybe a weekly meeting either over IRC or Hangouts or something else. Just keep in contact basically with your student, and to make your own job easier, try to encourage your student to interact with the community as much as possible. That, for instance, the developer mailing list of your project. That way, you don't have to answer all those questions. You can share the workload with the whole project. Yeah. Other than that, no, communication, I'd say, is sort of the key to becoming to being a successful mentor. There's also this Summer of Code book, open source book that I recommend you to read beforehand. It has a lot of good tips in it. You can just Google for the Summer of Code Mentor's Handbook, and you can find it. It should. It's open source. You can download it. They have a few formats available. Highly recommend it.
And what about students?
Sorry?
What about students? Do you have any tips for students?
Yes. Tips for students. I haven't been a student myself, so this is just from the point of view of a mentor. 1, treat this as a job. I would say that's maybe the biggest failing I've seen is students treat this as a school project or something, and then deadlines start slipping and so on. But if you treat it as a job, you will take it more seriously and you will be more serious with these deadlines. And then also another important thing, or the same as for mentors, is communication. Keep talking to your mentor. If you lose touch with your mentor, talk to your admin, who is basically the mentor's mentor. If that doesn't help, talk to your organization. And as a last resort, talk to Google. But keep talking. And it's sort of, that's the key, or it has been the key in many cases where lack of communication leads to problems usually. And then misunderstand, or if you try to hide something, let's say you have a study or an exam period in the middle of the summer. It's perfectly fine. Talk to your mentor. Tell him about it beforehand. Don't disappear for 2 weeks cramming for these exams and then reappear. That's usually not good. Just tell your mentor, I have an exam period now for 2 weeks. Either you can make it up beforehand, start early, or maybe start sort of before the study period that you need. Work hard, work like double time, and then to make up for this hole in the project, in the timeline, and that way. But again, communicate to your mentor this thing. As long as the mentor knows what's going on, things are usually good, and things can be dealt with. If you leave your mentor in the dark, it's going to be problematic. Those are the sort of two major tips that I always tell students to religiously follow. Another good tip is for you to do a weekly blog. It doesn't have to be a big thing. I usually ask, or we in OSGeo ask our students to answer 3 simple questions. Question 1 is, what did you do this week? Question 2 is, what are you going to do next week? And question 3 is, what are you blocked on? If you answer these 3 questions and write them as a blog or an email to the community, it will catch people's interest in your project, and then they will test it, and you will get feedback, which is good. yeah, that's maybe all I have for students.
Okay, any more questions? Or we switch to the pizza session? So, well, many thanks for being online.
Sure. Sorry for not being able to make it out there in person. I wish all of you best of luck. And a question for you before I leave. How many of you are considering becoming students this year? Okay, have you already started talking to your organizations? Or how many of you have started talking?
Done.
Do that. Get in touch with them. There's the list out there. Start talking to them. Before submitting your proposal, talk to them. Ask them detail info about the project or the proposed project. That okay, you can tell them, hey, I'd like to do this project. Is there anything that you should be aware of, or has there been some previous research into this, and so on. Just ask questions. Talk to them. Again, communication, the key thing to Summer of Code. Start talking now, even though you still have time to apply, and then you can, and while you're writing your application, whenever you have a question, reach out to the organizations, talk to them early on. That's how to get selected, basically. Plus a good proposal, but so it can be guaranteed, because sometimes also there are more students than there are slots. So that's another reason for really making a good effort into your proposal. Don't write it in the last minute. Start writing it now, and then refine it with your organization when you're talking to them and you get more info. Yes, I will now let you have your pizza session. Enjoy the pizza, and good luck to all of you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Wolf.
Bye-bye.
We keep in touch.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. So what?
Just the long awaited moment.
Yeah. Just the end. Just want to say there's a short scene. This event could not have happened without the help of many people here in the university. Some of them couldn't come. Pascal Felber he's my supervisor. He's a professor here, but he's traveling now to Paris for work. He has to be in the morning tomorrow. And he, Tien, who made a lot of logistics regarding the event, and he was in charge of the pizzas. Yeah, the people coming from Zurich, Geneva, and help from some colleagues that I received, in many things, and thank you also for coming. So I hope it was a useful session. Yeah. Okay, let's move to the.